Tyler's going to go ahead and start the clock. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, members of the excuse me, I apologize. I have a technical challenge here. Good afternoon, members of the Judicial Committee. I would like to thank you for your time. That these circumstances are the first time we meet is unfortunate. I believe the case before you is of high importance and worthy of your time. On behalf of the petitioner, Caryn Ann Harlos, I will make the case for overturning the LNC's decision to suspend her as duly elected secretary. Our appeal asserts this decision disregards the will of the delegates, due process, and perverts the non-aggression principle, all three longstanding pillars in the Libertarian Party and its culture. Consider the will of the delegates. In 2020, Angela McArdle, speaking in support of Caryn Ann, said Caryn Ann has transformed the role of secretary into something more than simply just a person who keeps records. She's turned this role into a lifeline of communication, and she has breathed life into the stifling atmosphere that so often smothers executive boards when they become more concerned with internal politics than they are with open, honest dialogue and the well-being of our organization. By keeping us informed of what's going on at the officer level, Caryn Ann has maintained transparency for us, the membership, and fostered a culture of collaboration that reaches across caucuses and ideological factions. We are the party of principle, and it takes courage to be principled when it means going against the tide. In Ms. Harlos's nomination speech that followed, she told the delegates, quote, "I will always expose what I see to be backroom shadiness and potential corruption in this party, and that's not always popular." With full knowledge of Ms. Harlos's disposition, provocative delivery, and promise to deliver transparency to delegates, no matter how uncomfortable, they reelected her as secretary. The matter of due process may be the most debated. The LNC draws from a 2008 opinion in another matter to support a vote to suspend the secretary rather than hold a trial. We find this problematic for three reasons. Reason number one, Robert's Rules of Order provides a disciplinary path when bylaws do not explicitly state otherwise. The language in our bylaws for LNC officers and non-officers is identical, but set in distinct sections. Roberts recognizes officers as uniquely different. It is the view of professional registered parliamentarian Jonathan Jacobs, who is on standby if needed, that the 2008 opinion is improperly applied in this matter. Unfortunately, a statement from Mr. Brown, who serves as the body's official parliamentarian, was not provided. Disagreement between parliamentarians is common, and a body may be faced with deciding which position best applies to its situation. But without a competing statement to consider with the information available, Mr. Jacobs' conclusion is that the LNC violated the right of Ms. Harlos to be judged through a trial. Removing an officer is a serious matter, and the LNC failed to provide documented evidence while leading a body known for passionate debate on matters of lesser degree. Reason two, even if accepting the 2008 opinion as applicable, the LNC only provided alleged outcomes and broad claims rather than specific documented action directly linked to specific documented outcomes. Allow me to illustrate by breaking down each sentence from the summary of the bill of particulars. Quote, "The result of this chronic pattern of misconduct by Ms. Harlos has created a hostile work environment within the LNC, LP staff, and LP affiliates. Before describing any set of actions as misconduct, it is necessary to match violations to each item. Instead, the LNC advanced and voted on a large body of evidence disconnected from violations or outcomes, requiring members to assume the conclusion. Quote, her actions have resulted in the loss of established LP members, LNC officers, LP employees, and longtime donors. 146 screenshots and PDFs, yet none offer evidence that Ms. Harlos' actions resulted in the loss of anyone withdrawing their engagement from the party. That isn't to say none exist, only that it wasn't provided. More importantly, without specifics, neither the JC or delegates are able to judge how any loss of engagement differs from other controversial LNC members, past and present. Quote, she has recklessly and willfully harmed the perception of the party and has become a liability to the party's public image. Similar to the previous point about loss of engagement within the libertarian community, claims of individuals harming the perception of the party are common and varied. Members have said the same of the past two presidential nominees, along with the past two LNC chairs. On the other hand, other members have disagreed. No evidence was provided showing Ms. Harlos' actions contributed to any public diminution towards the party. Quote, her profiteering using her position has undermined the ethics and reputation of the LNC as an all-volunteer body. Profiteering is an interesting claim given the importance placed on Ms. Harlos' words, which I will address momentarily. Profiteering is commonly defined as excessive or unreasonable profits. Some definitions define it as profits acquired in an unethical manner. Either way, the LNC did not provide evidence for either. Ms. Harlos' requests for views and monetary support were all voluntary, and no attempt was made to restrict information from anyone who chose not to support in any of the dozens of screenshots. Excessive or unreasonable profits does not fit. Likewise, no evidence was presented to support the bill of particulars description that she made requests for contributions, quote, based on her status as an officer in support of her attacks on the other members of the LNC. The two screenshots alleged as evidence do not name the LNC as a body or any specific member. Rather, it utilizes a specific term, ID polls, short for identity politics, and then shows Ms. Harlos narrowing the term to, quote, the ones who scream Nazi without proof at whole groups of people. I assert this does not describe any LNC member, but they are welcome to disagree. Any responses to requests for contributions were voluntary, the same as may be made by any member, officer, or otherwise. Quote, her continuation as secretary of the LNC would be harmful not only to the LNC and its members, but to the party as a whole. This is a specious point at best, harmful fiction at worst. Lacking specific documented actions linked to specific documented outcomes, the LNC is in no position to assert future hypotheticals. Furthermore, on the matter of the 2008 ruling, the LNC's September 19th response to Ms. Harlos' appeal states, quote, with cause laid out during the proceedings, Chair Bilyeu ruled in accordance with the plain meaning of the bylaws and past precedent that the LNC is authorized to exercise this power in the same manner it may exercise any of its powers by a motion being made by the LNC voting on that motion. A review of the proceedings will show the phrase for cause was used only 4 times, 3 times by Ms. Harlos and once by Chair Bilyeu at the 3-hour, 19-minute and 40-second mark. Quoting this, our rules, we are allowed to suspend by 2/3 vote for cause. There is nothing in there that requires us to give any kind of notice. The 2008 ruling briefly mentions for cause, saying, quote, the National Committee may only remove for cause, but cause is left undefined, meaning that is a matter for the sound judgment of the requisite number of members of the National Committee, subject to review by the Judicial Committee. For cause was not laid out, only referenced, and leaves nothing for review as required by the LNC's own insistence of applicability of the 2008 ruling. Reason number 3, again in the matter of due process. According to our own bylaws, this body is an organization with the purpose to, quote, move public policy in a libertarian direction and to function, quote, as a libertarian political entity separate and distinct from all other political parties or movements. What makes our body distinct from other political parties is our strong dedication to individual rights and our view that the current government inadequately protects individual rights. This creates an unwritten incumbency for our body to deliver a higher degree of due process when rebuking a member than the very entity we exist to oppose. Though we are an organization made up of volunteers, our dedication to individual rights, illustrated by the highest level of due process, is paramount for our public image. We must first offer to our own members what we promise to offer our fellow citizens. As with many other notable individuals throughout the party's history, engagement has the tendency to create conflict, but conflict alone is insufficient as cause. Let's shift to monetizing social media. The bill of particulars cites violation of conflict of interest under social media policy. However, no register of declared conflicts was provided by the LNC with any absence of Ms. Harlos, elements from Ms. Harlos, nor was it demonstrated that delegates or the LNC were at any time unaware of Ms. Harlos's social media activities. Ms. Harlos's YouTube account started back in 2017. One current LNC member who voted in favor of suspension was once a Patreon, having since removed himself. 4 years later, with full knowledge of the LNC during her prior term, Ms. Harlos is now told her monetization is problematic. Our body prizes the right of individuals to seek financial support from peers and neighbors, and prizes the voluntary nature even more. No submitted evidence identifies how Ms. Harlos is in violation. But what of charged, provocative, even incendiary language? Our former chair, Mr. Bishop Henchman, once expressed disdain for infighting on a podcast, but also defended it on the grounds that our unscripted nature ensures members have an equal voice in direction of the party. The chair prior to him, Mr. Sarwar, told a story at the last national convention where Ms. Harlos was reelected about a major donor he met at a donor summit. In response to the idea of the party being united, the donor said, quoting Mr. Sarwar's retelling, "We are a political party. Being united is not what we're about. What we're about is that we all care a lot about this party, and we all have a different vision about what this party should be, and we're going to fight about that." So he doesn't want our party to be united. What he wants is our party to be united in fighting in here about how we do this thing, and then turning to the outside and fighting them with everything we have. Without specific documented actions directly linked to specific documented outcomes, it is impossible to fairly judge if any level of discourse exceeds any reasonable expectations. We know our 2 prior chairs and at least 1 donor accept, even defend, rough discourse to some degree. And when leaders reflect members, as they should, we should expect conflict to arise between those leaders who represent the diverse membership, even more so on matters that generate strong passion from the members. Passion so strong that it took an entire day to move past our credentials report during our 2020 in-person national convention. Passion that presented itself during public comment of the June 15th and June 18th LNC meetings. Passion that brought profanity and even accusations toward various LNC members, regular members, and groups within the LP. Specific documented actions directly linked to specific documented outcomes provide the highest level of due process. The LNC should have been clear what actions were deemed impermissible, debated them, voted accordingly, and left you, the Judicial Committee, in the best position to adjudicate upon any appeal. This also provides members of the body to make the most informed decision when voting for future LNC members. Whether one looks at it from the letter of our governing documents or the spirit of those same documents, Ms. Harlos was denied the quality of due process that makes this body unique in its pursuit against the state. We are not just an organization full of volunteers. We are what we want the world to be. The third element of our appeal deals with the non-aggression principle. It says this in the Bill of Particulars, quote, Ms. Harlos's public slander and harassment of the LNC and LP members to achieve her political and social goals are in clear violation of the non-aggression principle. All individuals must sign and adhere to the non-aggression principle in order to be a member of the Libertarian Party. Article 4 of the LP bylaws states, members of the party shall be those persons who have certified in writing that they oppose the initiation of force to achieve political or social goals. It does not say officers shall be those, it says members. If, as the LNC asserts, Ms. Harlos has violated the non-aggression principle, that charge alone is sufficient to remove her. But the charge itself fails for two reasons: lack of specificity and its fundamental change to the non-aggression principle. Ms. Harlos is accused of using public slander and harassment of the LNC and LP members to achieve political and social goals. These alleged goals are never specified. Being unspecified, there is nothing to link to the alleged slander or harassment. If the JC permits this action to stand, the impact opens Pandora's box for the party to unravel. Accusations during public comment on June 15th and June 18th were plenty towards the LNC members and even regular members. Members in the LP on all sides frequently express themselves in strong terms throughout social media. By the very standard the LNC condemns Ms. Harlos, many members will find themselves equally guilty and possibly subject to expulsions and suspensions within state and local affiliates. And this chilling effect is not limited to any group or faction and may include any one of us present today. Since the beginning of the party, the non-aggression principle has never reflected unpleasant words. Its specific purpose is to communicate in no uncertain terms that the Libertarian Party opposes any violent overthrow of the United States government. This matter alone is worthy of overriding the LNC suspension vote. The vote to suspend upends the long-standing meaning and purpose of the non-aggression principle and threatens the culture of openness and passionate infighting about the direction of a party that members deeply care about. Passionate infighting that two prior chairs asserted brings some value to this party. Furthermore, the inconsistent application of the non-aggression principle for membership but dismissal of an officer for allegedly violating creates a barrier to entry for future LNC hopefuls. There is no angle this charge serves the party, present or future. The delegates voted for Ms. Harlos with the expectation that she would keep members fully informed and bring any potential corruption to them. As the LNC continued substantial silence during COVID lockdowns, Ms. Harlos took it to the members. Her perspective, shared by that of many members, was an LNC in dereliction of duty. Likewise, in the matter of New Hampshire, members were upset by LNC inaction and lack of transparency. Again, Ms. Harlos took it to the members, using her own social media account to gather as much information as possible. Many members saw the response from the LNC and the attempt to remove her then as retaliation against a whistleblower. Whether one agrees with the label or not, they must ask themselves if this LNC response encourages future whistleblowing by any definition. The LNC has made an egregious error that must be resolved. Overturning their decision is no small matter. Consequences of doing so are fewer than permitting it to remain. At the very least, it is necessary to dismiss without prejudice on the grounds of procedural neglect. When the Judicial Committee is unable to review the charges and specifications without further inquiry, illustrated in their request for timestamps for over 16 hours of video from Ms. Harlos's YouTube account, when 146 screenshots and PDFs include screenshots of others making requests on her behalf and includes innocuous requests for voluntary support without withholding any business information for those who choose otherwise, and includes statements from Ms. Harlos's own mouth contradicting the charges against her, when numerous screenshots appear that don't have even the slightest appearance of a violation, including a request for prayer, when several members indicated how they would vote Before even hearing Ms. Harlos's defense, and the LNC ignored attempts to resolve the issue through other responses, such as censure or mediation, Ms. Harlos was willing to accept, this can be seen as nothing less than procedural neglect and sends a clear message to those looking from the outside in that this body offers fellow Americans what it does not practice. This view is formally shared by multiple state parties, with Minnesota, Colorado, and New Hampshire each making formal statements against this action. Though only 0 states made formal statements in support of this action or demanding the suspension in the prior 2 attempts to remove Ms. Harlos. The LNC received over 1,000 emails in support of Ms. Harlos. While you may personally oppose Ms. Harlos's delivery style, the presented evidence does not rise to the standard that our own body demands from the government we oppose. The non-aggression principle charge threatens the very core of this party, and this suspension disregards the will of the members who voted for the same Ms. Harlos that they received. I respectfully ask the Judicial Committee to reverse Ms. Harlos' suspension and reinstate her as Secretary of the LNC. I would like to add one final comment in regards to Ms. Ruitt's request. We would be willing to accept, we would welcome mediation or censure as an alternative. Thank you.